I do need to, because
honestly.
I don't like, even when I did gigs and DJing or MC, people would introduce
when you
me,
hear your name.
and it's weird, eh?
It's a personal value thing. It's
Yes,
a
it
personal
is.
thing.
Mm.
Yeah.
So guys, I'm literally live in studio with the legendary Paul Rotherham. Hello, Paul.
Oh, morning. Hello.
Or the wonderful Marika, fellow coach,
everybody.
and Mary. How you doing?
Morning.
And we're just gonna be shooting the breeze this morning in studio.
Yes.
So you're leaving that while we're doing everything. It will be filming you doing what you do.
Yeah. What I've realized about social media is that you're just supposed to do it. It doesn't matter how well it comes out. Like, just do it. Just be on there.
Don't wait to be perfect.
Yeah, like if you're gonna wait to be perfect, it's like you're gonna
You'll
wait a
never do
long
it.
time.
Exactly.
Authentic.
I think that's some of our challenges, because we used to go live on Facebook. My phone isn't so cool. Maybe we should start using your phone though for that. So now we record it for our future Facebook, YouTube channel.
I don't even know if we're live, guys. If I'm live, please just say something so we know we are. I think it's live.
And is there a limit to TikTok for how long?
I have no idea. We'll soon find out.
We'll
This is
find
my
out.
first live I've ever done.
Really?
Yes.
Well, then it's gonna go viral because it's your first.
Let's hope so.
What? Sugar.
So this is very informal. It's like
Yes, a chat.
like we've been chatting now, except that the microphones are on and my computer is recording. Marika generally does the introduction, and then she's passed that baton over to Mary.
I'm just trying to get you in the picture.
Am I too high? Too low?
Too high. No, why?
Can this
Do you want to sit to my chair?
No, because the
There.
wheel is
I can go down.
One, two,
No,
one, two,
that's
one, two.
Huh?
Thanks for the tea, Marika. In a cookie nogal.
Yeah, today we get a cookie.
Wow.
I told them it's the first time when I order coffee every Wednesday. It's the first time we get a cookie. So you are doing something right.
Yay.
Maybe it's because you ordered so many.
No, I always order. Full.
But now they've realised you're actually a VIP. You're a loyal
Yes,
customer.
Exactly. Now we deserve a cookie.
If you guys are joining us, well, I'm just going to tell everyone what we're talking about. We're talking about, what are we talking about? how to get
Mindset. To change your state.
mindset, and how to get your mindset and how to get yourself in the right state. Yes. And there's so much to this conversation. So hopefully I do you proud.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. Looking forward to the conversation. Leadership by design, right?
Leadership by design, yeah. It first started. Well, are we starting yet?
No.
Oh.
But you can start.
But it first started out as Voice by Design because of the whole Steve thing.
Yes.
And then I was like, cool, guys, I can show you how to use your voice effectively, especially if you're on the phone or you're going to be using it. You've got to, like, that also requires the right state and how to articulate and use your words and how to breathe and all of that. So it was really more about that, more that than brain stuff.
Yeah.
And then it also turned into the one day I was like, I'm just going to teach people how to use confidence. Like, how do you tap into confidence?
It's important. Most people don't have confidence.
Yeah, and they don't know how. You know, they kind of think that confidence is something that other people do.
Yes, and it's like born into someone being confident, but it's not.
Yeah.
Can I ask you to get your microphone a little closer? There
Yes.
we go. You know how to do voices. And
And
It's funny.
positions and things.
And when I used to read the voice of Steve, they gave me the script, and that the brief that they gave me was, Steve's happy and he likes solving problems. I was like, okay. And then I'd take the script and I'd stand behind the mic and I'd have this face
Smile,
and I'd go,
yes.
good morning, Mr. Smith. I'm Steve from Beat Bank. I want to tell you about a brand new check account.
You have to
And
smile.
I'd have
You
this
can-
face.
You can, you
Just
can
so
hear
he
the
sounded
smile.
a little bit annoying. It's like, oh, that's Steve.
well, they say you can hear a smile. When someone
You do.
smiles, even though it's radio
Yeah.
or audio, you can hear it.
Yeah.
I actually, when I do my visualization process with my clients, and it's a part where I want them to get that feeling, I must look stupid, but their eyes are closed, but I'm
Yeah.
smiling. I'm smiling, so as I'm speaking, they can feel the excitement in
It's
my
the
voice.
energy.
Yes.
But people don't also realize that you can hear a smile over with sound. I mean,
Yes.
you know, your 38% of what you're communicating is the tone of
Vibration.
voice.
Mm.
So it's like, you know, it's you have your non-verbal cues and non-verbal communication, but 38% is how it sounds. And you're kind of going, yeah, and that's what I used to teach people. Like, if you're sitting like this and answering the phone like this,
People are going to hear it.
people going to hear that you're lying there on the table and you sound
Ugh.
dreary
Bored.
and
Yes.
bored. So stop it. Don't lie on the table when you're talking on the phone.
Paul, are you
Right,
ready?
so
Is my mic fine?
your mic is good, you're
Good,
sounding
good.
great. Mary,
Yours fine?
Hello.
can you straighten that soundboard behind you, please,
Yes,
on your
it's
left?
very annoying. I must.
My OCD is
Oh,
doing
me
its
too.
thing.
I'm like, I keep looking at it, but still I don't do anything.
That's so
There's nice little lines on the wallpaper. You can make it match the wallpaper.
Yeah.
There we go.
Mooi.
Even if the wallpaper's not lined up properly.
Yeah, as long as something
It
looks
is now
kind of.
aligned.
It's terrible. Hey,
Yes.
I don't think I've ever had a podcast chat with so many people in one room yet.
Really?
It's always just two people.
Two people,
Yeah.
yes, this is new.
welcome to the
I love
future,
this.
Kevin.
I love it.
So we're obviously not going out live with the audio. We are recording, and we try and record it in a way where you would think it's live, so that I don't have to edit things out.
Yeah.
So
We
if
just
there's the odd pause and the and the we're not doing a 30-second voiceover for radio. We're just having fun and
in
having
3
a
years, I think we've stopped once.
Yeah, that was 2 weeks ago.
Yes. It was the only time we
You
had to
stopped?
stop and restart.
Oh, why?
Oh, she
We
got
had a guest who just didn't feel
nervous.
comfortable. It's amazing, and I've said this so many times. People think that if they can stand on a stage and speak, they can do radio, and vice versa.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But the two are so different. You're used to having a microphone up your
Yeah,
nostrils.
yeah.
A lot of people aren't. For them, this is intimidating.
Yeah.
For me, what's intimidating is a camera. So if I ever did TV work, I'd be like, okay, cool. I need to do some. I need to go see someone about that,
Yes.
because how to be in front of a camera and have a camera right here.
In your face.
But be exactly as you are.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah, but
you've
it's
got the
just a
radio
brain
experience,
thing.
so
Yeah.
straight away you can speak.
Yeah.
All you need to do is picture it as a person. That's what I always did. It's just, this is someone. It's
Yeah,
not
that's exactly.
So she
that's
got a bit
yeah.
overwhelmed. So she
Shame, man.
said, no, I can't do this. So we just had to just give her some confidence, and then we started again.
Yeah, she was great.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was. She was brilliant.
They're bringing these serviettes. I've just spilled me
So
tea.
you've missed. And your listeners.
Yeah,
just
listeners.
watch and see
Okay,
this
so
is
well,
real life.
this is live here, but we're actually doing a recording. We're not doing live radio. We're doing a recording for
Yes.
the podcast.
Yeah.
What is the podcast called?
The coaching hour.
The Coaching Hour, guys. So you can check that out on
Facebook.
Facebook?
The
The Coaching
Coaches
Hour?
Network, Coaches Network.
the Coaches Network is also on Facebook. I'm part of that network, so I see everyone there. So
But
if
it's
you
not
want
an hour long, in case you're worried about being bored to death by Kevin.
no, listen, I have lots of interesting things to say.
say.
I got lots to say. And not because I'm full of myself, it's because I
So
try
much
and
to
consume so much information.
Yes.
We keep it to probably half an hour, 40 minutes, because
Yes,
otherwise it
max
does get a
40
bit long,
minutes.
even if
Can,
you're
yeah.
great. We'd rather have you back for a
Yes.
second recording and have two bite-sized
Yeah.
sessions than one long one where people tune out.
Yes.
Are we good to go?
Yes, we
Let's make sure. Mary, is your phone on silent?
Yeah, my phone's in the bag.
You must just remember to take photos after.
Yes.
We must, yeah.
I'm just putting this on silent. Yours is on silent as well.
It's on flight mode.
Okay. Cool. So we're good to go. I'm going to clap so then we can see where to start. Here we go. Hello, welcome once again to another edition of the Coaching Hour podcast. It's always such a pleasure to be the host of this lovely, I was going to say show, but it's not really a show. Program sounds too formal. It's a recording, a coffee chat. We're sitting around a table at our studios here at Empress Palace, and today, for the Coaching Hour podcast, we have a lovely guest who you'll be meeting in just a moment. I'm Paul Rotherham. I'm joined in studio, as always, by the lovely ladies, Mary and Mareka. Goeiemorgen, good morning.
Hi, Paul.
Hello.
Why did I just say goeiemorgen? I'm going to do this again, actually. Why did I say goeiemorgen? The first thing we say to anybody is, please don't mention the time.
Yes, and then he does it.
Because it's got to be generic, and then I, like an idiot, go and say goeiemorgen.
Goeiemorgen.
Okay, we'll do that again.
Automatic pilot.
It's
That's
radio.
so funny.
But you see, it's because I feel like it's so comfortable with Kevin here, it feels like we're on the radio.
Yes.
Okay, we'll do that again. Here we go. And clap. Again. Right. Hello and welcome to another edition of the Coaching Hour podcast. I'm Paul Rotherham. It's lovely to welcome you to this edition where we have a guest who I'm really looking forward to hearing today. I'm joined in the studio here at Empress Palace by Mary and Mareka. Hello, ladies.
Hello, hello.
Nice to have you here. Mary looking as if she's going to a wedding today.
She looks beautiful.
You're so dressed up and dolled up. You look
Do you
lovely.
think so?
You look great.
Valentine's Day was last week. Yeah?
Maybe she's got a
Maybe she
name
doesn't
brand.
give her secrets away. It's just let her.
But you look lovely.
Well, I'm wearing flowery things.
Yes, and you have lovely makeup on. And anyway, this is radio, so to speak, and not visual, so you have no idea what Mary looks like. You heard the voice there of our guest who's joining us in studio, and I'm going to allow Mareka to do the introductions, as always, for today's Coaching Hour podcast.
Good. So today we actually have a famous person in studio, and we'll get to that in a moment.
I don't know about famous. Thank you.
So we have Kevin Brits. He's the owner of Leadership by Design. He's an executive coach, and yeah, he's all about leadership, but in a different way, right?
Yeah.
Hey, so welcome, and we're so happy to have you here today. We are talking about how to shift your mindset and your state.
Thank you, guys. I'm really glad to be here and quite excited about it. I know we've had conversations before on
We
my
did.
podcast, and yeah, I'm returning the favor.
Yeah,
Like,
so
yeah.
Kevin has his own podcast
Oh,
show.
wow,
Yeah,
okay.
what's it called
The
again?
lunchtime series, yes.
The Lunchtime Series,
Lunchtime
yes.
series.
And I mentioned he's famous, so just quickly tell us, if people say, oh, this voice sounds familiar, who are you?
Well,
Who are you?
you're going to have to be older than 35, because if you're not older than 35, people look at me like I don't know who
What's
you
that?
are, dude. But I used to be the voice of Steve. So right back when F&B started, they had this massive campaign on radio.
Yes.
I auditioned. It was the third voiceover I'd ever done in
Oh,
my life.
wow.
And yeah, I was like, okay, well, just try. Let's see what
Yes.
happens. And went in and they said, Reed, the guy's friendly and he's a little bit annoying, but he tries to help everyone on,
Yeah.
when he answers the phone. And that's how I did it. And I looked at the script and was like, hi, I'm Steve from Beat Bank. I want to tell you about our brand new check account. And 4 years later, it was one of the best, I think it
Campaigns,
is
yeah.
Most
apparently
successful campaign.
one of the most
Yes.
successful radio campaigns in the history of South Africa.
Absolutely.
So, and I'm like proudly that voice, so yay.
It's amazing.
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because fame and fortune often come with being recognized.
Yeah.
So if you're an actor or a television presenter or an artist, a famous musician, people look at you and know you. Where in your case, it's almost underlying, where people don't look at you and see Steve.
No.
No.
Because you are well known for having played a character,
Yeah.
not well known for being Kevin.
Yes.
Exactly, and the thing is, when I told people, they were like, "You is Steve," because like Steve didn't look like that in their heads.
Yes.
Everyone had this version of this anonymous
Me
dude.
too. I would never.
Like
have
some
thought.
thought he was like a chubby little like oak that like tried to help people. Other thought he was quite skinny and
Yeah, this
lanky
nerdy,
and like
nerdy
nerdy.
kind of guy
Yeah.
with glasses.
So I'm glad that they had that, because it really lent itself to the fame of what Steve was, because
Yes.
it really made an impression in a big way. I mean, F&B got so busy. Some of the stats that I know was that they actually opened more accounts in the first 6 months of that campaign than they did in the history of F&B.
Wow.
That's
Thank you,
amazing.
Steve.
Well done.
I have to ask, not to go
That's
too off
crazy.
topic,
Yes.
but it is who you are.
Yeah.
Did FNB ever use you beyond just being the voice? Did they? So you were never invited to a seminar as Steve?
No.
Never put on a stage to MC as Steve?
Yeah, I like, what the hell, guys?
Yeah.
If anyone at F&B is listening to this, why didn't you?
It would have been amazing though.
I even suggested, I went and saw the marketing director, who still is, I think, the marketing director. And I said to her, like, why can't we tap back into old Steve here? I'm like, there's so much life there that we could bring up.
Yes.
And they were like, yeah, we'll let you know.
Oh,
Oh,
like
wow.
one of those don't call us. We'll call you.
Yes, kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, there's some lovely financial carrots attached to this sort of thing. Let's not deny it. Getting into a character like that as a voice artist in an
Yeah.
industry that, as it is pretty cutthroat and ruthless. to be signed up for that is fantastic. So well done. That's awesome.
Thank you. And even the conversation we're going to talk about today is lends itself to how I went from the Steve campaign suddenly ending to kind of reinventing what the hell I do, because I was like, it ended and I was going, okay, what now? Yeah. Like, where do I
just
go?
for some context, we think that everything is always magical in this world of the entertainment industry, and it isn't. It's harsh and it's ruthless, and as I said, it's cutthroat. You literally went into a recording studio one day to do some more Steve recordings, and they said,
this is probably our last, because we've had a new pitch from a different company that's sort of going to steer away from the whole Steve thing, and we're going to go with them.
So thank you very much. This will be your last voiceover. Here's the script. Do a good job.
Yeah, that was it. And it ended. And I was like, what? Why? And then I was on the call with the agency for I don't know how long. And it was, I was traumatized. But then someone said to me, well, why don't you just teach what you know? And I had this coaching background, and I'd been on stage all my life. Since I was 4. So I was like, okay, well, what do you mean? And they like, well, teach people how to use your voice. So I did. And I started Voice by Design.
That's awesome.
Then.
So that was your stepping stone?
It was a stepping stone into kind of go, well, how do you create something from what you know how to do? And I think it's a secret to everyone's lives, really.
It's a redirection.
Completely, and it's really kind of you don't recognize your wow factor until someone points it out, and it's like, looking
at
for example, like changing the voice of radio. Like if you could do that, that would be like, wow. Imagine someone did that and had the vision to change that. That would be a wow factor. And I think someone pointed that out for me. And I was like, okay, well, I've got this NLP brain stuff and I've got voice. How do you put that together? Can you teach someone? And my very first client, I mean, I didn't have a budget those years. I was like, okay, well, how do I advertise for this? And I put it out on Gumtree.
Wow.
Gumtree.
And I was like, presentation skills training. And my very first client was an executive at Nedbank.
You're kidding.
And she was a Muslim lady, beautiful, lovely lady. And she had this very difficult situation she had to deal with being very submissive in her household, but being an executive at Nedbank.
Yes.
And she didn't know how to reconcile those things. And we went through a bunch of processes. And after 3 weeks, she had a complete turnaround. And because she was submissive at home, she couldn't actually vocalize and be heard in a corporate.
Yes.
And then suddenly, with going through some of the training, she just one day it sort of twigged and something landed for her, and she's like, Kevin, I can't thank you enough. And it literally, I was like, okay, cool. If I can do that, then I can do a lot more, And then that's where it started,
And were you doing it off the cuff? Were you doing it based on knowledge you had in your head? Or did you formulate a specific training program for this first client?
I formulated a proper, I created an entire manual. I created a manual where we'd go through the NLP communication model, understanding what that model's about, and then looking at various models that we could use to help incorporate how you would step into a different state. Because that's what she needed to do, and it's similar to when people go on stage and have to present. When they're really nervous, you're not that person all the time. You don't need to be like, oh, look at me, I'm confident and wow and
all the energy,
all that. You can actually step into that state and kind of do that job, and then get off the stage, and then you're just you. And
look
that's
at comedians. Some of the top comedians are the most depressed people you will ever meet. Because comedy is their outlet.
Yeah.
I heard that from the mouth of someone.
No, I've worked with a few over the years, and not to say that they're all about to jump off a bridge, although there is that poster with Barry Hilton.
But they're still just human, and they have their downs as well. So
Did you see the poster? Now that I've referenced it, I have to explain it. Did you see the Barry Hilton poster?
No.
There's a poster, and I can't even tell you what he's advertising, but it's in the north, and it's a huge poster of Barry Hilton, and it's along the lines of, my wife said I need to join a bridge club. I'm jumping off next week. and I don't know what it's about, to be honest.
Yeah.
So it's actually a bad advert if you don't know the product or the service. But yeah, he's someone, and this is public knowledge, he's gone through a really tough life. He's had a tough time. He's had massive problems in his personal life, just like many of us have had. Yet you see him on a stage, and as Kevin's saying, you step into this character, and you become someone who really, most of the time, you're not.
Oh, Jim Carrey.
Jim Carrey's also, yeah. But I mean, there's Amy Cuddy. Amy Cuddy is a professor. So if anyone's listening out there, you can actually Google this. Amy Cuddy I think she's from Harvard or somewhere. But Amy Cuddy speaks about power posing. And she literally going on stage and using your body in a certain type of way. For 2 minutes, it changes your cortisol levels and pushes up your testosterone. And using your body, you could literally trick your brain into believing you're doing something powerful. So every time, because knowing this, and there's science, she's a science she's a human behavioral specialist. She does this for a living. And she studied that, and what's beautiful about it, every time I've gone into any corporate meeting, I've used that as a power stance, like the whole Superman kind of stand or stance. And the receptionist often would say, "Well, you can have a seat," and I'd be like, "No, I'll stand here by the window," and then I stand there. Okay. And every time I've done that, I've had an amazing outcome from just using that as a tactic. And again, that's also how you can actually get yourself into a really good state.
Yes.
That's what Bruce Lipton, have you heard of him?
Yes.
He mentions that you change the chemicals in your body when you change your body movements and your thought.
And I think a lot of people don't realize that there's a doctor called Dr. Andrew Huberman, amazing doctor. He's a neuroscientist. And he just puts neuroscience into a very, very practical way of thinking about how you can actually do this. And he has a conversation as well where you can literally use your body movement to be the precursor of what it is you'd like to feel.
Yeah.
So, and this is what Bruce Lipton is also referring to, is that if you know that your feeling is depressed or you're feeling a certain kind of something, if you can coax yourself into knowing what the behavior and action of feeling vibrant is, force yourself to do that behavior, because your brain's going to go, "What the hell are you doing? Why are we getting up and moving? Why are you moving? Stop moving." And you're not going to like it.
Yes.
But very quickly, within a couple of minutes, your brain's going to get on board with, "Oh, we're moving. Okay, cool. Now let's do this because now we're moving." And essentially, because of that, it literally starts changing the chemical balances in your brain.
Even when you're smiling.
Like fake
Even
smiling.
when you're smiling, yeah.
Fake
Smiling activates.
I mean, Amy Cuddy actually says when you put a pen in your mouth, like this is one of her studies, and you put a pen in your mouth, it forces you to smile. And if you do that long enough, your brain's going, "Okay, why are we so happy?" And it changes your brain chemicals.
Yeah.
And all your friends go, "Why the hell is there a pen in your mouth?"
Forcing myself to
it's like,
smile.
it doesn't matter, just let me do it. Yeah.
Oh wow, that's fascinating. And I think this is such a brilliant tool for people to know, because people don't know this, and confidence is a tool that we all need. I mean, especially in the corporate environment. You would think that someone that is an executive or CEO, whatever, they have so much confidence. Not necessarily. Sorry, I'm laughing because Paul just threw his tea on his mouth.
I was shaking my tea to mix the sugar, and I poured it all over my arm. But that's okay. You wouldn't have known that. So I was just quietly sitting here in my pool of wet tea. Never mind. Continue as you were. You see, this is laughter therapy. You just need to be here in the studio with us. Why did it do that? It literally
went over the glass. But laughter therapy also is a thing. I mean, I've attended such sessions. In the beginning, it feels like stupid. You're laughing for nothing. But then you start laughing at each other, and then you just start laughing, and it makes such a big difference.
Contagious.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm slightly addicted to TikTok, and
Slightly.
And one of the things that one of the people I follow said, also specifically around laughter, how laughter changes your brain chemicals, and she has a mechanism of doing that where you just go ha ha ha. And eventually you just start laughing.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow.
And you're like, okay, that's quite weird. But if you do it, it actually works.
Wow.
You
There's
can
a
actually
laughing
force.
hospital in India.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
I didn't
You
know
can
that.
Google it, yeah. There's
Laughing
and
hospital in
you
India.
go there and they cure all diseases.
You know what you get for lunch? Laughing stock.
Even in what's his name's book, Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, You Are the Placebo. There's one case study also of a guy who had cancer and he refused any type of medication and treatment, and he just watched comedies day in and day out, and he laughed himself. Oh,
Better.
yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
100%.
Cured his cancer through
He
laughing.
did.
Wow.
He did.
Yeah, I think to the point that we were talking about time just now, Paul, as well, which is a whole other conversation. We're not going to go into it now, but essentially, there is far more, and I think that's also one of the conversations that people need to start realizing. There's far more to us than we believe there is.
Yes.
And we're not just these physical beings. We're not just this physical body. But there's an expansion, there's a vibration, there's a frequency of what we vibrate at, and as humans we actually need to start acknowledging
We should tap
that there's
into that, yes.
yeah, we should tap into it, and we should not skew away from not just because you can't see it with these eyes doesn't mean it doesn't exist,
Yeah.
right? So even if it's just having an open mind to it,
Yes.
that I think people need to start doing that because. It's far more real than it's not
Yeah.
real, and there's
Yeah.
far more evidence. The more we do it, and the more we seek it out,
Yes.
there's more evidence to prove that there's stuff existing that we can't see.
Does that apply to our politicians? Have they also got that?
Unfortunately, yes.
So Deepak Chopra said
Yes.
that what we think is real
Yeah,
is unreal.
Yeah.
And what is unreal is real.
yeah.
Well, define real. What is real?
What you can't see.
Well, the thing is, there's also that thought process of you are what you see in the world. So everything you perceive and everything that your filter system is filtering, and that's part of the NLP communication model, is what we know is that our brains generalize, distort, and delete information. So it takes, subconsciously, it has to make sense of stuff consciously, because consciously we can only process I think it's about 2,000 bits per second, right?
Yeah.
But subconsciously you're picking up over 2.4 billion bits per second. So it has to do something with the rest of that information. So your perceived notion of what you're generalizing, distorting, and deleting, right, goes down to about 2,000 bits per second that you're dealing with. And a practical example I always use when I'm doing training is when you say to Honey says, sweet, don't forget to buy the milk, and you're like rushing on your phone, you're like, okay, love you, bye, and then you're out the door. And then you come back and you arrive at the door and you look at Honey and you go, oh, I forgot to buy the milk.
Yes.
And I always joke that it's not that you don't love Honey, it's just that you deleted Honey because you were busy with something else.
Yes.
Right? So you delete that information based on the fact that you're just not focused there. So the thing is, how much more awareness can you start actively having on what it is you'd like to focus on? Because it's easy to focus on South Africa and the politics and the crime and the petrol and it's easy to do that because it's thrown into your face. Like we consume that so easily and bombarded with it all the time. But the thing is, the people in power know that. They know that people are susceptible to easy, let's create enough fear for them to want to hold on to something so that they behave a certain way. And I'm here to tell you, stop
buying
focusing,
into it, yes.
stop buying into the fear,
Yeah.
stop focusing on the fear. Because that's why you're caught up in fear.
Yes.
It's because you're focused on it. You've made it part of your narrative, part of your story, part of your filtering system.
That's then your reality,
Yeah.
obviously.
Exactly, yeah.
So what is it? This has been such a wonderful chat. We've been talking for like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. It feels like you've been here for 5. It sounds like a crazy question. What is it that you actually do? It sounds like there's so much to this, but
Yes.
but most coaches who we have on the Coaching Hour podcast, there is a modality that they focus on. You mentioned your first coach, how you basically assisted her going
Yeah.
from being this subservient, almost submissive character at
Yeah.
home to somebody who could wear the suit and have the power in the boardroom. But what is it that you do, Kevin?
That's such a big
Many
answer,
hats.
Paul. Yeah, no. So the thing is, I'm going to sort of give you an answer, quite a wide variety answer to this, because it's not just one thing. I like to solve problems, right? So one of my highest needs is, and we all have highest needs. So we all have our highest needs that we need to tap into, and when we're tapping into our highest needs, we thrive. So one of the things is that I have that I know is growth and variety. For me, growth and variety are right up there. You know, if I'm not growing, I feel like I'm dying. So if I'm not learning something, if I'm not learning a skill, if I'm not doing a podcast and chatting to Marek and say, hey, listen, come be on my show and I'll be on your show, like then I feel like I'm dying. Like there's constant growth that I need.
Movement, yeah.
And I like doing variety. So, I mean, from a corporate perspective, I like to go into a corporate environment and sit down with leaders and go, what is the problem? Tell me what the challenges you have specifically with people,
Yes.
and how do we then come up with a beautiful solution on enabling you guys to be able to change the actual cultural or the organizational culture within that space.
So you customize according to the profile that you establish.
Exactly. We always customize. So, for example, just recently, I'm not going to mention the brand, but I've just worked with a large insurance company where we did the unconscious bias and inclusivity program. So we created an unconscious bias inclusivity program based on the fact that it was a toxic environment. Well, it has been, and they've been struggling to get out of the toxicity of biases. So they would just have groups of people that are similar that sort of worked in one part of their business. And clicks, but also their biases were playing automatic biases that they didn't realize were playing into that. And we looked at that and said, okay, cool, well, how do we teach and educate people to be able to get them to learn about biases and bring the awareness to the forefront, and then how do we sustain that so that it's an actual shifting behavior, shifting the conversation and how I speak to you and how I make decisions and who I recruit and how I'm doing it and how my biases influence that. So that's just one example. Another example is a large law firm has asked me to do something specific around human-centric leadership. So what does it mean to be a human-centric leader, right? How do you tap into having really good conversations, but also building boundaries with people and knowing that even though you're having a good relationship within your team, can you still have a difficult conversation? Can you show empathy when you're actually showing up as a leader? Are you doing it, and what sort of mindset are you coming from? Because very often one of the things that we also look at is your inward and outward mindset. And it's all the work from Arbiter Leadership Institute. They look at the inward and outward mindset, and what that specifically speaks to is, I have crib notes. What that actually specifically speaks to is, from an inward mindset, I'm kind of looking at, well, what am I getting out of this? So to give you just a plain practical example, it's like, oh, you guys are putting me on your podcast. Thank you. It's all about Kevin. Listen to me. That's a very inward kind of approach. But immediately I'm going, Marek, you haven't been on my show for a while now, and I would love to hear what you have to say and what you could coach about. So how can we win out of that? And that's a completely outward looking or outward mindset.
Collaboration.
Completely collaboration. And I think a lot of leaders don't look at leadership as collaborating. That's the one thing. And they also look at leadership from a perspective that I'm the leader, you're my employee, right? And my stance is, what a leader is someone who creates more leaders. So when you're doing that, then you're leading a business, then you're leading an organization, because if you have a bunch of leaders who are leading, all you need to do is create a vision for them to follow.
Yes.
You know, then you've got really powerful people working in the same direction. So I do that. And then I do one-on-one kind of coaching.
Wow.
It just made me think of that saying, too many chiefs and no Indians.
Exactly, right? And you know, people everybody likes to be in charge, but if you bring it back to the practicality of why, is because we all have significance as a need, right? And if our significance isn't being met, I want to be significant somehow. So how do I make myself significant? To be also one of the chiefs, right? But if your significance is out of whack, I'm going to be bombarding people with, look at me, and I'm going to come across that way. But if you understand that you can actually add a lot of value by bringing wisdom, by bringing kindness, by bringing empathy, by bringing that in itself is also leadership quality.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't need to be. You don't need to be significant by being loud or being,
When Dyer said, you got to shift from what's in it for me to how may I serve you.
Yeah.
Yes.
And that's also the inward-outward mindset, right?
Mm.
Because when you're literally going, okay, cool, I'm getting this and I'm getting this exposure. Yeah, thank you for me. But what can I do for you? How can I help
Also,
you?
how's this benefiting the people who are listening? Because you
Yes,
right now
that's
listening to
true.
this, there's a benefit there that's way beyond anything that we've really considered
Exactly.
or that we have control over.
And also, that's also why I do these shows, because from my perspective, running my podcast, I don't get paid to do it.
Yeah, true.
I don't no one's like throwing cash at me going,
Oh, come on,
Come
you're
on,
doing it
come
all
on,
wrong then, Kevin. You're doing it all wrong.
and I had this moment because I had to ask my system. I had to ask myself about what is
Why
the
am I
point?
doing
Why
this?
am I doing
Yes.
this? Because I'm not getting cash for this. And because it was smack bang in COVID where we
I
both
remember,
started,
yes.
right? And I really had to I grappled with that, and then I understood that, well, if I died because I have asthma and COVID got me, would I have left some kind of legacy? And then I was like,
Of course, Steve.
Wow.
Well,
Yeah, except
there would be Steve.
But they won't know Kevin though.
But they wouldn't know Kevin, right? And then I thought, okay, cool. If I'm going to do this, then let me do it because I want to add value to people's lives.
And it's gonna live forever.
Yeah. So I was like, okay, cool. So that is the reason why I do it. And if that leaves some kind of wow to someone, and it's this big, and it's just 5 people,
It's worth
then
it.
I'm like, okay, cool. Then I've done my job. I've left a legacy of some sort.
Love that. Wow. We can go into so many directions with Kevin. I almost said Steve.
Everybody does. Like,
So now the brain is like Steve, Kevin. All right. But we are talking today actually about how to shift your state.
Yeah.
So I just want to get into that a bit and why it's important, and because it is important because we get so negative by the stuff we hear maybe on the way to work, the news and stuff like that, and then you already feel like when you walk into the office. So how can we shift our state, or maybe just explain first what it is, or what do we refer to if we say shifting your state?
So there's a lot of conversation to this, and I'm going to try and break it down to just like really practical things. From the NLP communication model, what we learn is right now you're my external event, I'm your external event, right? So I'm not happening in your head, I'm happening outside of you. And essentially your filter system is experiencing me according to your filters. And I'm experiencing you according to my filters.
Right.
And your brain is doing exactly what it's supposed to do. What then happens is, because your brain has values, beliefs, memory, decision-making processes, we call it your meta programming.
Yes.
And because that's happened, what's happening in your brain is like you're eventually going through all of this processing, and your brain filters it down to a giving it meaning. So then you go, okay, what this moment means is this.
Yeah.
And once you've made that meaning, your body then associates that meaning to an emotional state. And that emotional state will direct your behavior.
Okay.
So getting your emotional state to really get your emotional state on the right side of where you want it, you really have to pay attention to what it is you're paying attention to.
Okay.
So because you're my external event, because my filtration system's happening the way it is, there's something in your brain called your reticular activation system, your RAS. And your RAS will start paying attention to whatever you pay attention to. So I always say there's 3 rules. Your brain is there to keep you safe. Your brain is there to focus on whatever you want to focus on. And then your brain is trying to find supporting evidence of what you're focused on to support what it is you're focusing on.
Prove that you're right.
To prove that you're right. To prove this reality,
Yes.
right? And because of that, when you keep yourself busy with all the things you don't want in your world, you're creating a very negative state for yourself. You're creating a state that's not working. And you're starting to feel very bad, right? What happens after that is your behavior goes and listens to what your state's feeling. So then you just start behaving in a negative state, right?
Like not being motivated.
Not
to
being
go to the
motivated,
gym or
depressed,
yes,
and constantly bickering and fighting and not feeling like you're thriving. Oh, we're living in South Africa and this means this, and
yes.
all of that stuff is influencing your state, right? But the opposite of that is true as well. This morning, I specifically woke up because it's one of the new processes that I'm actually doing for the next 30 days, is having about a 40-minute meditation process that I'm like, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that I listen to. But it's letting go of stuff, letting go of fear, letting go of anger, letting go of, and it's a meditation process. But part of getting your state set up is being able to prime your brain to be able to set yourself up for success. And that's what state is. Your state really is a whole bunch of information your body is taking in, and it's creating a feeling, and that's the quickest, easiest way to resonate with it, is the feeling I'm feeling right now. And if your feeling is not so great, ask yourself what's happened in the last couple of days. Like, when did this feeling arrive?
Yes.
And what's beautiful about that is when you have the awareness of understanding where your feeling is originating from, you also have an indicator of what went wrong in that moment. Did someone say something? Was someone having a tone with me? Did I get a negative email? And sometimes I catch myself at like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. I was like, why am I feeling so like down? Like something's heavy.
Yeah.
And then I'm like, oh, it's when that person sent that email because they haven't paid the invoice yet, or they haven't done this yet, or they haven't met the deadline that they said they were going to meet. And that moment you recognize something in your day, the feeling of what you're feeling is associated to your state. And the more you can bring awareness to that state, the more you have the ability to make different choices on how you would like to channel what it is you'd like to experience.
Versus just accepting it as, okay, so I'm feeling depressed. So
Exactly, because that's what we
Just
usually do.
living
We
in that space.
we sink back into that negative state. And the fact is, you don't need to have a negative. You don't need to experience a negative state all the
it
time.
doesn't have to linger
It doesn't have to linger.
the whole day long.
And also, when you think of, and this is a psychologist actually taught me this once. Was he was writing his last sort of exams for his degree, and a week before his last exam, he lost his dad.
Sure.
And I was like, well, yeah, that's bad. And he said, you know what, Kevin? What you need to do is you need to learn how to bag your sadness. Like bag it.
Yes.
And he's like, what do you mean bag it? And I was like, he's like, no, just put it on a timer and like say like at 7 o'clock tonight, I'm going to deal with my sadness, and then time it for an hour and then stop. Because life carries on.
I used to do that actually automatically in a certain situation.
Because essentially and that also, when you're finding yourself that something traumatic has happened, feelings, and again, around state, the conversation around state feelings is a beautiful indication that your brain's trying to tell you something. So when you often find that people they don't want to go to a conversation, they don't want to avoid that conversation or that person because of the negative state they might feel or experience because it's a difficult circumstance. But what you can recognize from it is that your body's actually just telling you that you're experiencing a certain kind of something, and it needs to be acknowledged. And usually when you acknowledge sadness or you acknowledge the fear of something, it dissipates.
It's true. Yeah.
But people get stuck into that state, right? And
they buy into it, and then they buy into the negative thoughts that comes with the feeling.
Yeah.
And then they think it's permanent.
Yes.
Exactly.
And memories that's coming up and triggering more stuff, connected to it.
Another thing that I want to add to a confident state. There's an amazing psychologist called Albert Bandura. Many years ago, I was doing research for what can I add as a module for people around confidence, and there's two things that really lend itself to confidence in a big way. And the first one is self-talk, and the second one is self-efficacy.
Okay.
Self-talk, guys. Self-talk will ruin your day. It will ruin your life if you don't have a handle on how you speak to yourself.
Yes.
So and that's just a fact, because your self-esteem comes from that self-talk moment. How you speak to yourself, what language you're using when you're speaking to yourself is unbelievably important, because that will direct a state, a feeling for you. But the second part of the confidence is self-efficacy, and self-efficacy is how good is my ability to do the thing I'm about to do. If I have the
competence measure.
Competence measure, right? It's how competent am I to do this thing.
Yes.
Now, when you have high competence and you have great self-talk, you automatically build confidence. You automatically put yourself in a position of confidence, based on the fact that those two things are supporting each other. But as soon as you take the competence level away and your ability to be self-efficient, you're just having someone who's really loves themselves a lot. And then when you're okay, cool, can you do it? Show us. And then you're they can't, right?
Yeah.
That's when a lot of the times people step into arrogance when they recognize that, and because they don't have the competence level, they just got this big ego. Yeah. So you have to have the balance, and you have to be able to really know both areas and how both areas actually support how to step into confidence, because that's where confidence lies.
Yes.
It's in supporting yourself and how you speak to yourself, and doing the work of being competent. Research, learn, ask, phone a friend, whatever, do whatever you need to. But know you need the competence levels to support the self-confidence to be able to do the thing you're about to do confidently. And that will help step into a really confident state.
Now, Kevin, we need to wrap up the session. I know we can talk for hours.
Damn.
Is there any final tips or something that you can give the listeners also to help them to start shifting? You've already given quite a few, so if you have a few left.
But this is the great crescendo, the climax, the hero shot, Kevin. Think of that one Steve call where Steve just did something mind-blowing. This is that opportunity.
Kevin's far better than Steve. But I'm gonna give people a practical example of how to do something that's incredibly simple, but is probably the most effective way to understand how to get yourself out of a negative state and how to get yourself into a present moment. Right? And everyone in the studio can do this with me. So one of the things that I like doing, it's called a somatic body experience, right? And you can do this in the traffic. So instead of being annoyed with the traffic, just be present in the traffic, and you won't feel annoyed, right?
Cool.
And the easiest way to do this, and guys, this is a practice. This is not a magic wand. It is a practice of life on how to get yourself into a present state. And when you're in this present state, you move into your brain into a sage moment. And sage in itself is quiet, calm, in control, right? And all you do is you take a few breaths. Take nice big breaths in.
Okay.
Right? So you're immediately bringing attention to your breathing.
Really getting relaxed.
Right? So your attention's here. Okay? And what I want you to do is take your hands, don't do this while you're driving, but take your hands and just touch your fingers very lightly.
Like fingertips rubbing against
each
other?
Just your fingertips. But now what I want you to do is pay attention, literally attention, to every single finger touching every single finger.
Cool.
Right? And while you're doing that, I want you to bring attention to your bum sitting in the seat. Bring your attention to your bum right now and feel how that feels.
Under your bum.
Yes. Feel how your clothes is touching your body. And if you move all the way down, move down to your feet and feel your feet in your shoe, and then count your toes.
That's difficult.
It is difficult because we never do it, right?
No.
So count every little toe. Like there's just, some of us have
Big
10,
toes.
some of us 11 toes, but like count all of them. Like bring the attention to all of that.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay.
Take a nice big breath. And the last thing you want to do is notice something in the room you're sitting in right now that you never noticed before. So look around.
Okay.
Do you feel stressed?
No.
I feel quite sleepy.
Yeah, I feel relaxed.
I can add to that.
Like zen.
You can cross your ankles.
You can, yeah.
Wow.
So what did we just do?
What you just did is you had a somatic body experience, which means you brought all of your attention, which is not externalized, and it's not worried about tomorrow or yesterday, or the meeting that you're going to have just now, or you're not worried about any of that stuff, because it's very difficult for your brain to do this and intentionally thinking about your fingers touching each other and how you're actually breathing. You can't do that and worry about your meeting. You can't do it at the same time.
Stand
Yeah.
at the same time.
And the brain can only focus on one thought at a time, right? So
Yes.
if you're so focused on what you're busy with here, that's what you're focused on.
And a good way to do it in the traffic is you just feel the tip of your thumb. So if you're driving,
So at least one arm
One
on
arm
the
at
steer,
least.
and then feel your other fingers. Or,
So
yeah,
okay.
in the brain, the corpus callosum then activates
yeah,
homeostasis.
yeah.
Love it.
And that's what you want to do. You want to bring yourself back to intentional presence.
Yes.
Because once you're intentional about your presence, it changes your state.
Yes.
It completely changes,
Mm.
and it happens. And you can test it. You can just do it like proper
Yes.
practice. You can test this. It will change your state every single time.
Love it.
Wonderful.
That's a cool tool. Thank you so much, Kevin. This was a
That really was
very
a happy
insightful-
ending.
It
Thank you.
was.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for inviting me. I'm like, I could do this all day.
We'll have you again,
we should
absolutely.
have lots of conversation.
Yeah, no, this was fascinating. Thank you. I
Thank you.
enjoyed it.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for having me. Everyone on TikTok, thanks for being here. And guys, thank you. Thank you for the legendary Paul Rotherham.
Oh,
Yes.
thank you. You make me feel so good. Where can we find you on the socials?
On this, I've done so much work at just getting my name out there, just so that people can actually get hold of me. So you can just type my name in, Kevin Brits, or you
With
can
an S or a Z?
with a Z,
Z.
with a Z, Kevin Brits, and you'll see me talking and doing stuff. Or you can actually go kevinbrits.com. Or my business account is leadershipbydesign.co.
Just .co.
.co.
Awesome.
Yes. Thank you.
Kevin Brits, thank you so
Thank
much for
you.
joining us for this edition of the